Kenyon Sadiq, tight end from Oregon.
This is a true athletic freak of a football player. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at the combine. Keep in mind, he's 6'3", 241 pounds. He might have the highest potential of any player in the 2026 class, but there are some real weaknesses we need to go over.
We're going to start off with his strengths, looking at why this player is such a interesting prospect for NFL teams to try to get for their team, and they do not want to see on their competition this next season. The first, I want to call out his 2 touchdowns he had versus Rutgers. Maybe not the toughest competition, but he showed you exactly what you want to see from a top-level wide receiver. He showed you balance, hands, technique in order to get the ball, extend away from his body, and make highlight catches. That's exactly what quarterbacks want in a tight end they're going to be throwing the ball to on a regular basis. We also see he has a good natural gift for sitting down in the defensive zone. But the problem with that for defenses is that if they want to collapse and stop him from sitting down in the zone, he also has the speed, like we talked about with his 40 time, to run right by them. It's a nightmare matchup for any linebacker. And he's too big for any corner. So whether he stops in the soft spot of the zone or he runs right by you down the field like he did against Rutgers, you can't guess. He's too fast for you to guess, but he's too fast that you also kind of have to guess what he's going to do, making him an absolute nightmare matchup. The blocking, he had a great play versus Oklahoma State that shows he wants to dominate at every facet of the game. So being a great receiver and a willing blocker is definitely some of his strengths.
Yeah, so one of his strengths that kind of I was pointing out when I was looking through a lot of his film is that he does have alignment versatility. Like, he is very fast. He's a good tight end in that aspect, but he can also play in line. He can play in the slot sometimes. He did in Oregon. He also can play out wide. I don't think that's going to be something he does in the NFL very often, but the fact that he is able to do that gives him a little bit of a boost in my rankings there. He also does have pretty good ball skills and efficiency in that aspect. He does have strong hands. He has body control. He did have a 145.5 passer rating when targeted in 2025. That was top 6 amongst all tight ends last season. That's a guy that your quarterback wants to go to, and we know there's a lot of safety blanket tight ends in the NFL that can be very valuable in fantasy football, aka Harold Fannin. We'll get into our NFL player comps later, but you can also say that his willingness to block is a potential strength. We can also get into the fact that sometimes it is a bit inconsistent, but again, with his speed and very rare, honestly, movement traits from him for the position, the athletic ceiling that he does have makes him a very, very viable potential fantasy player, but also NFL guy. The thing with Sadiq, though, is that he really is a true ceiling player. He does have some inconsistent traits. When you look at his route running specifically and just what he did in college, he only had 80 career receptions. That's not a ton considering how high he's projected to be drafted. In 2024, specifically that year, over 50% of his targets came from around the line of scrimmage. They used him on a lot of screens, jet motion, flat kind of plays. He's not yet a super refined downfield runner that can be consistent in that way. He does still look a little bit chunky running his routes at times. But with those things combined with the inconsistency, I would say, in blocking, sometimes he can look absolutely amazing, and sometimes you can just miss an assignment. That's something that I believe can be taught at the NFL level and is not a true risk, but it is something that for a number one consensus tight end evaluation in the draft this year does have me worrying a little bit. And he has dropped some passes in 2025. I don't think it's a skill issue. Sometimes he can take his eyes off the ball early and start trying to run before actually bringing that ball in. So his efficiency has dropped versus stronger defenses, especially. But with all those things combined, he is still an elite prospect. There are some things to worry about, though.
To add on the blocking side of the ball, 245 pounds, his arms 31 and a half inches. That's 14th percentile. That's on the low end for tight ends, making it extremely difficult for him to be an inline blocker at the NFL level. At the NFL level, they're looking for about 33-inch arms and just giving up a couple of inches against those pro-level defensive ends. Yeah, he's been bigger, faster, stronger throughout his high school and college career, where he's dominating these smaller players. But the NFL level, he has to face the best of the best. And with his arm length and being 245 pounds, that size combination may not be enough for him to start as an inline blocker, which brings up a little bit of a challenge because he is a quite an amazing receiver. But if you can't be on the field for every play, when you're out there, the defense knows, just like we see somewhat with Kyle Pitts as well at the NFL level. We'll get to those NFL comparisons. But when he's out there, they kind of assume, hey, we got to watch out this guy. He's getting extra special attention. They're watching out for him because he's not on the field every player. So when he's out there, he's probably going to be used. He's probably going to be at least part of the offensive game plan for that specific play. That's one concern I have for him. The other one is that with the blocking, the technique, like Avery said, he does dominate at that second level, the corners, the safeties, which is a huge asset to a team that wants to run the football. But that technique against the defensive ends, where that would save him, even being a smaller guy, great technique can save you. That's something he'll need to refine as well. So without the technique and without the size, he's got a big learning curve ahead of him.
So when I was putting a player comp together for Kenyon Sadiq, it did rack my brain a little bit because I think a ceiling potential for him could be a George Kittle kind of guy from his perspective of like if he becomes a better blocker. I think he is definitely more athletic than a George Kittle, but the ability to get open is something that I could see him as a ceiling and how valuable he is in fantasy football specifically. The first thing that came to my mind was a Vernon Davis kind of guy just from the combine numbers. I think he could be and can be a better blocker than Vernon Davis was, but from athletic perspective, he's explosive. He has his flashes. He contributes in his opportunities, but is probably going to take a little bit of time to be fantasy relevant in that aspect. Seth, what do you think about your comps when you looked at his film?
Yeah, I had three comps. The first was Vernon Davis. And I want to call out that it's hard to give anybody a Vernon Davis comp. I wouldn't quite say Kenyon Sadiq is to that level. Vernon Davis ran a 4.39 in 2006. That is unheard of. And since then, there's really no tight end even close to that speed. So this is a one-of-one type of player. The other comps I had was Kellen Winslow Sr., a little bit of a throwback, Hall of Famer, one of the best receiving tight ends of all time. So high praise there. I see a little bit more of his great extension away from his body catching the ball. And then I've got Kyle Pitts, and that one's a little bit more of a negative connotation, like I was talking about with the blocking, that if you can't be on the field all the time, you get the extra attention when you are on the field, which limits your productivity. And I kind of see Kenyon Sadiq, not a pro comp, but almost like when you buy an ice cream machine for your house. It sounds awesome, but the problem is you're just not going to use it that often. And that's my worry with Kenyon Sadiq going to an NFL team. They used that first round pick. We saw at Oregon, like Avery called out, he didn't have the most production, 80 receptions. If he's that fast, if he's that athletic, if he's that elite, why didn't we see him dominating at the college level? So it seems more like he's going to be used as a more niche player with the blocking lacking. He may struggle to get on the field. So I'm not super excited about him for year one unless he ends up with the perfect landing spot.
When you're talking about Kenyon Sadiq, I got to be honest. I really could not disagree more with what Seth was saying about his blocking capabilities. I personally think his blocking is absolutely elite. Seth mentioned the arm size. I think a lot of people would say George Kittle's the best blocking tight end in the NFL. His arms are about 33 inches. Kenyon Sadiq's are 31 inches. The 2 inches is a difference, but not anything that makes me like super anxious about it. If you watch him block, he gets after dudes. He is absolutely nasty, in my opinion, which to me makes me believe he's going to see the field early in his career. The route running is a little bit of a concern, but he's good at finding spots in the defense that he can get open and make some plays to help his quarterback. Plays where the quarterback has to make things happen on his own. Kenyon Sadiq is very good at getting back to the quarterback and making plays happen. My player comp for him is Colston Loveland. They both didn't have insane collegiate production. They're both solid like blockers. I think Sadiq's a far better blocker than Colston Loveland is, but it's those athletic, insanely athletic freak guys. I mean, Kenyon Sadiq ran the fastest 40-yard dash of any tight end in the history of the NFL Combine, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if they wanted to line him up as a wide receiver who's just like the most elite blocking wide receiver in the league, whoever drafts him could do that. I'd love to see him go to a team where there is very, very minimal tight end competition, and that's likely going to be the case in the mid to late first round. I'm thinking it's going to be more mid first round after the Combine for sure. On the lower end, I can see a sort of like, if he fizzles out a little bit, doesn't have a ton of production to start, I see someone maybe like Brevin Jordan, capable pass catcher, solid blocker. I see that sort of outlook for him. I see a little bit of Eric Ebron also. I don't think he'll have like a 48,000 touchdown season like Eric Ebron had for the Steelers that one year. But I'm really excited about Sadiq. There's obviously some red flags, but I think my biggest standing on business point here is I think he's an awesome blocker. So I'm super excited to see him knock a defensive end on his butt. For all the info you could possibly need on all of the upcoming prospects in the NFL draft, make sure to download the WalterPicks app and check out the rookie guide. We work super hard on it, and I'm very excited for everyone to get their hands on it. Go check it out right now.